Bumrah equals God. The text I received on Friday morning. The preceding events had triggered such an apt message for greatness had just occurred. The dismissal of Steve Smith goes down, in my memory, as a seminal moment. The rest of the test match, from this moment onwards, was inevitable. Jasprit Jaiswal, the second Kohli coming, scored his best ton to date in one of the great opening stands with KL Rahul. Then the master came to kill the Aussies off. A particular on-drive down the ground sticks in the memory, such as its poise and fluidity. 100 red, the legend continues. And with 500 plus on the board and the baggy green 3 down by the end of day 3, Indian fans could rest easy, reassured by the almost guaranteed 1-0 lead. By the end of day 4 it was confirmed, a 295 run victory. Cue the Australian meltdown. Welcome back to Behind the Stumps. It has been an unbelievable week in cricket. We're bringing you a jam-packed show today. We've got obviously the Australia-India test in Perth and going over all of the good stuff from there. We've also got a little bit on England v New Zealand. That series starts tomorrow. The comments made by Darren Lehman about Joe Root, and a little bit about the IPL draft over in Jeddah as well. Hi Ray, we're without Luke again actually. His handyman's just turned off. We were about to record, so we might get him back for the second half when we're discussing England. But Ray, I mean, how are you doing? How are you feeling after that victory for India?
Elated, feeling elated, mate. With being underdogs after the loss against New Zealand in home, it is really a great feel winning the first test match, especially in a ground where Australia has never lost. So I'm feeling very elated.
Yeah, and I think let's just get stuck into it. Like, the main story is obviously 295 run victory, pretty historic stuff, very historic stuff. One of the great wins for India, probably ever. Definitely great wins in Australia for India. And I want to just, for me, the moment Smith got out when he was hit on the front pad, first evening, Australia go 4 down, I think it was. Khawaja's got out the ball before. And it's just, from that moment on, the game was over, in my opinion. Obviously, there was still good Australia. You still had Head to come, still had Mitch Marsh to come, still had Carey, who's been in good form, to come. But it was just, for that moment, summed up the game, summed up the whole sort of atmosphere in the ground, I think. And forget analysis for a moment. We'll get on to that. But just what were your emotions at the exact moment Smith was hit on the front pad and the finger went up?
I was like literally, in my room at I think 4 a.m. in the morning. I was literally screaming my tongue out, like, yes, we got the man. So because he's the main man for the Australian batting line, he's the backbone. So if we got him on the golden duck, so that's the moment. And as you said correctly, the opening burst of Jasprit Bumrah is the defining moment of the test match.
Mm-hmm.
The third session of the first day, that was the defining moment, because we all out for 150, and in the third session we picked 6 wickets. That opening burst was the defining moment. Absolutely,
it's just unbelievable scale. Just completely unplayable. You can talk about Nathan McSweeney struggling, looking out of his depth or whatever, but I don't think practically any batter in history on that deck in those conditions with a new ball. I mean, it's a big statement to say in history, but he was just so good. Perfectly set up. I think it was McSweeney who he set up with a few outswingers and the one that was pitched a bit fuller, darted in for the LBW. Never seen anything like it, really.
we spoke briefly about that in the previous episode as well. How difficult is opening the batting in Test match, and the difficulties of McSweeney in facing Jasprit Bumrah. That was happened. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that takes us perfectly on to India's batting afterwards. putting on 500 and that 200 run stand. Was it 201 the opening stand from
201, yeah,
between
from
Jaiswal and
KL
KL
Rahul.
Rahul? How about Jaiswal, Ray? How about that for an innings?
Fearless. Fearless. That's the only word to describe him. His first test
Hmm.
in Australia, his second innings, got out for duck in the first, and came back in that fashion is absolutely fearless. And his mental strength is, really, really high. Because, he got the two teams who batted before got out cheaply. So
Hmm.
from your mental strength, it's you have to think about it. It's not a big scoring pitch, and he just go out for flashing drives and got out. But he's steady in his mind. He wants to score runs. He wants to prove the critics that he has the ability to score in down under, and he did that
Hmm.
perfectly. So he's
Yeah,
absolutely the next global star from India.
yeah. I think big thing for me is looking at some of the numbers. Is that he's clearly got the temperament you need for high class test batting as well as the shots. We all, watching England tour last winter, we all knew that. But his 161 came off 297 balls, so it's not actually the quickest scoring rate at all. But it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. He's clearly got all the sort of ability, mental strength required to do it. And I thought this is something that the great cricketer said, that it's good from Padikkal and Jurel to completely fail in their batting innings to make a nice, easy selection decision for Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill to come back into the side. Uh, we're going to preview properly um, next week for the second test, the day nighter in Adelaide. But how do you think the batting lineup looks for India with the return of Sharma and perhaps Shubman Gill as well?
It's going to be a happy headache for the Indian cricket team, but I do feel hopefully it will not affect the mindset of our batters and the batting lineup as well. So because currently our batting lineup is set, so if we change that, it might affect the mindset of our batters and the team. So I don't know what the team management is thinking and what they're going to do.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
as a fan, I want KL to continue opening because Rohit played down the order in the last series in Australia. So I want that to continue, given the fact that Rohit KL performed well in the first test. But it's in the hands of Indian management and Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, I think definitely seems a no-brainer to just put Rohit in at three, doesn't it? Just because don't move that around. Rohit's done it before, right?
Yeah, but that will affect Shubman Gill's position as well because Shubman Gill is a top order
Hmm.
batter, but Rohit has batted down the order in his early of his career. So
Hmm.
I might think, Gill at three and Rohit at five or six. That will
Yeah,
be another option. But I don't know if it goes well because Rohit has set a standard in the opening. And Kale is a guy who has done every role for India. He has kept wickets. He has batted at 3, 1, 5, 6. So
yeah,
it's up to the Indian management. But I
yeah,
personally feel I don't want to change the opening pair.
yeah. Oh, I definitely wouldn't. I mean, it's one of the best opening stands for a very long time. For a visiting side, I quite like. I should have done the research on the last time an opening stand made 200 in Test matches in Australia, because it'll be a long time. Someone will have worked it out, I suppose. On to Australia. I was going to ask Luke this, but I'll ask you instead. So, as English neutrals, we love an Australian meltdown as much as the next man. It's slightly different for you when you're supporting the opposite side, but how much you enjoying seeing this sort of the Australia just seemingly wilting, panicking uh, at what just happened.
I enjoyed the Indian win rather than enjoying the downfall of Australia because as an Indian fan, we were literally down and out of the park after the loss against New Zealand. We were literally down, and most of the fans write this team off. From there to win the Test match in Perth is literally the biggest achievement. And with Rohit Sharma, Mohammad Shami not in the team, Shubman Gill not in the team, so it's quite a big thing for me as a fan. So I literally enjoyed that moment. And with the Australian, team, I personally feel they are after the opening burst of Bumrah, they literally out of the game, and they tried
Mm,
everything to break the partnership of Jaiswal and Kohli, Rahul, but they didn't have the luck as well. So they bowled some good balls. Did some disturbed like the batting of KL and Yashasvi, but the luck didn't favor them. And it's like when something is out of their way, nothing goes well. So it's really a bad luck and a bad session of cricket for Australia. Cost them a match, I guess. So the third session of the first day that cost them a match. If they batted the opening burst of Bumrah and without losing too much of wickets, then we saw what happened in day two.
hmm
So if not the opening burst of Bumrah, anything had happened.
hmm
That's the defining moment.
Yeah, oh, totally. Before we move on, I mean, I get jumping the gun on the Australia chat. We haven't talked about Kohli yet, have we? What do you think it make of his innings?
Yeah. Ooh, Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
So absolutely. No, as Jasprit Bumrah perfectly said, Virat Kohli doesn't need the Indian team. Indian team needs Virat Kohli. Whenever he performs, that's a big, big boost for Indian team. And he perfectly, first test of a 5 match series, he's back to his form, scored 100 after 1.5 years. That's a great sign of an Indian batting lineup. So it's perfect start for the series as an every Indian fan wanted. Virat Kohli back in his territory. As I said earlier, King is back in his kingdom, and he's going to rule the series. I feel.
Yeah. Any more hundreds this series?
Yeah, a lot. I'll expect another 200, especially in Sydney and Adelaide. We'll talk about that in the next preview because Adelaide is a happy hunting ground for Virat Kohli. He
Yeah.
already has 300s, three test hundreds in Adelaide.
hmm Okay, very
So
good. He's got 7 in Australia now,
yeah,
from what I've seen.
it's yeah, he loves batting in Australia. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I enjoyed it when he, because I think I've been supporting India over Australia. I think I slightly prefer them to Australia. And I think he was on about 70 odd, and he just a switch kind of flicked in him, and he started teeing off a little bit more. Uh, Picked up the aggression, realised the declaration was coming, so he needed to get on to make sure he turned up. Um, but
Yeah,
I was also thinking if Bumrah declares now of him on 95, it would take all the
not at all.
momentum out. It would actually let Australia into the game more than the spell. Anyway, they had both. Had that spell in the third evening, wasn't it? A
Evening.
pretty
Yeah,
almost carbon copy, not quite as dramatic, but carbon copy really.
yeah.
With Cummins falling, McSweeney and Marnus
Marnus
again. We'll
Labuschagne.
get onto Marnus. We'll get onto Marnus. Don't you worry. Um, so yeah, on to the Australian batters. I've been doing a little bit of digging around, looking at a few numbers, and I actually feel a little bit sorry for Mark because he seems to be the one, if you look at social media, to be singled out as the worst performing Australian batter at the moment. Um, when you look at not only this game where he was, scored 2 runs in the game, but it wasn't exactly a barnstorming performance from him. And there's been a graphic going around every single big media outlet of Marnus's averages since 2019, some 2018, some 2019. And I think his decline is so notable because of how good he's been for so long. He averaged 64 in 2019, 67 in 2020, 65 in 2021, 56 in 2022, and 34 in 2023 before dropping right down. There was already quite a significant decline in 2023, but even further down to 24.50 in 2024. And I think it's harsh. I would back him for a bit longer. He's in his prime. In theory, he should be in his prime, age 30. Clearly, he's not in his prime in terms of performance. Um, and he does seem to have lost that class that he had for so long. But I think he's probably becoming a more experienced head in that dressing room. You're looking at the retirement of Khawaja soon, just due to age. He's going to have to. It's not going to last forever. You're looking at the retirement of Smith as well. And I think what I wanted to get onto is that Marnus has been singled out, where actually Travis Head's averaged 29 this year, Smith's averaged 25 this year, Khawaja's averaged 26 this year, and then I think Mitch Marsh is 40 plus for his average, something like that. And they're missing Cameron Green, who, let me just find out Cameron Green's average this year quickly.
Yeah. So, speaking on Marnus, that's the mindset of most of the cricket fans across the world. I feel we know what happened when India lost against New Zealand. Everybody write off Virat and Rohit. Most of the Indian fans want
quickly on that. So, and then Cam Green's averaged 50 this year. So it really is just like they're missing their best batter, form wise, and all their other batters are struggling. They've lost David Warner, and they probably feel they need to start plugging in the new generation with McSweeney's pick. And like, this is quite a funny thing. So on Channel 7, one of the Australian news broadcasters, there were suggestions that he should go and play second or third grade cricket, which is basically high level club cricket in Australia, just to get some time in the middle. It's just like sort of really sums up the level of head loss from them, that they're suddenly resorting to him going and playing club cricket amongst us dobbers, really. But yeah, Ray, what were you going to say on the situation with the Aussie batters?
Yeah, so when your team lost, all the players who played in the team will go under scrutiny. That's what happened to India when we lost a Test series against New Zealand. Most of the Indian fans want Virat and Rohit to retire. Now, after Virat scored a century in Perth, they all celebrate him like in the past. So it's as a fan, I want every fan to understand that cricket is not a stage play. It's a sport. It's really hard for every sports person to perform in every game. It's hard to succeed the expectation. So I want as a fan, I would hopeful of Marnus to bring his form again and score some runs in the series. But it's really tough on Marnus. As a player, everyone wants to score runs, everyone wants to perform. Even the greats of the game have a dip in their game at some point. So it is okay if Marnus scores some 20 or 30 runs. That's the part and parcel of a game. So I don't want people and media to be harsh on players. But as a journalist or as a media, they want something to feed to the audience. They want something to spice up the things. That's what their job is. So it's like we know as fans or upcoming journalists what will happen in the back room of media and what will we need to deliver to the fans. So as a fan, I want Marnus to not look up to the media, not hearing anything from the outside, just focus on their game, come back to the form. That's what I see.
Easier said than done. He'll be feeling the heat at the moment.
Yeah, easier said. Yes,
he'll be
absolutely.
very aware
Easier
of it
said
all.
than done, but
I don't know. This is my sort of my English ways. I mean, I'm not sure if I do want him to recover and start doing a bit better or not, because more than him, witnessing the Australian media around it is quite amusing, as opposed to actually watching the player. I'm not enjoying watching the player themselves decline. It's more seeing the meltdown from Australian fans, from Australian outlets, more than anything else. Another thing is the bowlers. Is it harsh to describe it, especially in the second innings? Obviously, they bowled really well in the first innings. To describe their just bowling as toothless, quite blunt, quite deflated, especially by the end. By the end of once Kohli was in the groove. Cummins struggles. Josh Hazlewood was superb. But I thought Cummins struggled. Lyon was getting the ball to turn quite a lot, and it just wasn't quite happening for him. What's your sort of analysis of the bowling side of things?
No, when you see the Australian bowling, I feel they deviated from their plans in the second innings, especially after the Indian batters, set in the day, early day two. So they lost their, confidence of picking wickets. They bowled some good lengths, but luck didn't favor them. So they feel tired. And when you see Marnus Labuschagne bowling, especially after the Indian batters go off him, the negative bowling is they say in the terms of cricket, like bowling not into the stumps just
Mm,
to delay the 100 of Virat, to which forced them to bat in the end of day three. So they started bowling
mm,
negatively. That shows the mindset of Indian Australian bowlers, and they failed to pick 20 wickets, which is a bit of a shame. And given the experience of Australian bowlers in their home, whereas on the other hand, the inexperienced but the fresh legs of Indian bowling lineup, they picked 20 wickets, which is a
yeah,
very good thing for the Indian team and Indian fans. So Australian bowlers were in the pushed to the back in their home ground. So it's a bit of a shame for their bowlers. It stings them. It stings very harsh themselves and Australian bowlers themselves also. So I feel they're very eager to come back in the next test. Let's see how they go in the next test.
yeah. More comments, more noise coming from the Australian media. So on Fox Sport, they reported that Hazelwood was asked about Australia's approach at the end of day three. Um, and Hazelwood said, "You probably have to ask one of the batters that question. Probably, I'm sort of relaxing and trying to get a bit of treatment. I'm looking mostly to the next test." Uh, Adam Gilchrist has said there might be a divide in the Australian dressing room. Uh, and I just thought it's another just little nice bit of fun for me as an English hater of the meltdown that I keep referring to. For me, that's just, I mean, it feels like maybe he's asking the batters, "Oh, can you get a few more runs? Give us a bit more of a rest, please," instead of getting toppled over for 100. Uh, where really he's just frustrated. He's had a tiring day in the field. He's just seen 3 wickets fall at the end of that session. Uh, and I think it's pretty like there's nothing to really look into there. Uh, Apart from maybe thinking maybe Hazelwood shouldn't be the man talking to the media after a bad day or in bad circumstances, given he's got a track record of suggesting Australia might throw the game against Scotland during the World Cup back over the summer. So I think that's the main takeaway from that whole debacle. Another debacle is that Australian not commentator, an Australian journalist called Robert Craddock, who has criticised the Australian team for being a nice cricket team. He said the trouble with being a nice cricket team is that you don't scare anyone. This is a central reason why the Australian team has lost its secret weapon, its aura of intimidation. Uh, which obviously was not being a nice team was definitely a big issue for the Australians when they won the World Cup a year ago. Um, it was a big problem when they retained the Ashes 4 times in a row, or however much it was when they beat England 4-0. It was a big problem when they won the T20 World Cup in 2021. When as soon as you use some critical thinking skills, it's pretty ridiculous to say the fact that they act in a professional, in a well-meaning way, that they're much more respectful of the opposition than maybe the glory days of Steve Waugh and sledging and being genuinely nasty to opposition players in the field. Uh, Maybe it's actually just a ridiculous thing to hark back to those days because they've lost one test match. Ray, what do you think? Or are you
The
just not
intimidating
bothered? You
factor
don't
is
care?
it's gone. The intimidating factor is gone. Right now, we don't have the feel as like the old Australian teams, like when they have Ricky Ponting, Glenn McGrath, Shane Warne. It's gone. The days are gone. And right now,
But
especially after the
no one was saying the fear factor was gone and they were going to suffer for it when they were being one of the best team in the world, winning the World Test Championship. So
Yeah.
is it a fear? Is it to do with them being acting professional, or is it their skill levels just declining for various reasons?
I don't see the skill levels declining, but the reasons, as you said
I
earlier,
do. I do. When
yeah,
I see their batter struggling.
yeah, some players at the end of their career, when you're end of the career, your eyesight, your sight of the ball, and your reaction times might get slower, especially
Yeah.
batters like Steve Smith, Marnus, Labuschagne, Usman Khawaja.
Hmm.
Yeah, so these three batters are the fag end of their careers. So it might, their reaction time might get slower, but they have the same skill, same technique as they, have in the early stages of a career. So I feel it's not to do with the skill. Maybe, they have to practice more, spend more time on the nets, especially when you're in deeper form. And with the bowlers, there's no doubt they are world class bowlers. And with you said earlier, because of the tile legs, they bowled on the full day of day one, first most two sessions of day one, and then back to bowling in the day two again. It's really
Hmm.
frustrating as a bowler. So that
Hmm.
might be one of the reason for them to failing to pick wickets in third innings. But I
Oh
say,
yeah, totally.
they'll come back. Yeah, they will come back
Cummins will
stronger
be
in the next
back
test,
because
especially
Cummins
given
struggled,
it's a day-night
but
test,
Cummins will be back.
which is a fourth of Australia. They lost
Hmm.
only one day-night test. We'll speak about that in the next episode. So I feel they'll come back strong in the next test.
Oh, it'll be a tighter game. Surely it'll be a tighter game. They've got to galvanise. Anyway, we'll talk about more about on that next week. Just before the break, a little bit of mundane stuff. So the second test starts on the 6th of December in Adelaide. It's a day-nighter. Bumrah is going to be using the pink ball, so more on that when it comes. But I'm very, very excited to watch him under the floodlights. Starts 2:30 p.m. local time. Intriguingly and very good for Indian fans out there, it starts at 9:30 a.m., 9:30 in the morning in India. So perfect viewing, and 4 a.m. in the UK. So not too bad for Ray and me uh, and our levels of sleep deprivation. Ray, before I move on, do you have anything else to add on a historic
Yeah, so
test match?
the inclusion of we didn't speak about Harshit Rana in the lineup in our preview, but Gautam
Yeah.
Gambhir and the management backed him to debut, and Nitish Kumar Reddy's debut as well.
Hmm.
It's a good thing, good sign. They bowled Harshit Rana bowled pretty good, and Nitish Reddy batted very very good, especially in the second innings. When they want to declare, he went all through their bowlers. So that's a good sign for India. Hopefully, Nitish Reddy will become a future star like Hardik Pandya.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh Too right mentioning those two players. I thought Rana was very impressive. Wicket of Travis Head, bit of a danger man, sticks out my memory. Uh, and he looked really dangerous. Good pace, good bounce, good areas, all
Yeah,
good
bowled some
really.
heavy balls.
Yeah. He looked the real deal, didn't he? Uh well, I think we're going to take a quick break. Hopefully, we can get Luke back for the second half if his handyman's left. We're going to be discussing. I want him back because we're discussing England v New Zealand, and he's good on the England
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
We'll be
Perfect man to
discussing.
describe.
I'm also excited to try and nib him with some chat about Joe Root. Maybe I'll take Darren Lehman's side. Don't worry, I won't do that.
Yeah,
And also
absolutely.
the IPL draft and the 13-year-old who's going to be playing for the Rajasthan Royals. All that after the break. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Stumps. We've had a quick break. Luke's handyman's left and he is back for the second half with me and Ray. Luke, how are proceedings over down in London?
Good, mate. Yeah, good. We've got our ovens now working, so happy days.
Nice. Just life doesn't get much better, does it?
No.
How little quick one. What are your how much are you enjoying the meltdown that's ensued in Australia before we talk about England v New Zealand?
Yeah, absolutely loving it. I'm sure you already talked about Bumrah in depth.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, honestly, it's making the Aussies look very, very average at best. And thinking about how strong they've been over the past sort of 4 years, yeah, I don't know if it's just Australia on the decline, a few of their batters getting older, or India just being so good. I think, to be honest, it's probably the latter. And I imagine Australia will come back into the series. But yeah, absolutely loving the demise, and long may it continue.
Yeah. I mean, one thing it does mean is for the Ashes tour next year, England may face a rejuvenated with some new faces who will then inevitably turn out to be the second coming of Steve Smith and Ricky Ponting, and we'll be back to square one. But
well, then I was thinking about it. I think that's where the problem for Australia lies. They don't have many test-ready players coming through when you compare to India. They obviously have a bit of an aging team as well. Kohli, I know Sharma didn't play. Jadeja, Ashwin are sort of getting on a bit, but the players that they're able to bring in, Jaiswal, Jurel, and that is actually another point, is India weren't actually even at full strength in this test. If you got Sharma to come back, Shubman Gill. So yeah, I think, as to quote the great critics of the Asian century, looks like it's upon us.
It has been for a while now, and it's really coming into its own. Apart from the Kiwis, they'll have something to say about that, I suppose. Yeah. England versus New Zealand starts tomorrow, 10 p.m. For anyone watching over in Britain. The England side is as follows: Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett up top, Jacob Bethel at 3, Joe Root, Harry Brook, Ollie Pope with the gloves, Ben Stokes in at 7 as captain, Chris Wokes, Gus Atkinson, Bryden Carson, Shoaib Bashir. I've identified the main talking point. It's quite an obvious one, is that Bethel's debuting, coming in at 3. It's all very new, all very exciting. It's another Stokes McCullum gamble, which have been mixed. Some have worked, some haven't. He's a power-hitting left-hander. He's been deployed by England as a white ball specialist so far, and has thrived particularly well during T20 games. He debuted against Australia in September, I think it was, where he had a notable 44 against them at Sphere Gardens in Cardiff, to taking on Zampa really expertly. It was, very impressive stuff. He's also had an 88 against South Africa at the Under-19 T20 World Cup during the quarterfinal. That was back in 2022. And if you're talking about his white ball form, he looks really positive. I just wanted to hear what you guys think of him. I quite like the selection overall. I appreciate it's a bit of a risk. We'll get on to lack of county championship experience, red ball, first class experience, that kind of thing. But gut instinct wise, I think it's quite a good pick. Luke?
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well. I think from the ODIs that he's played, it's clear that he is super talented. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does really, really well. Obviously, he's very young. Yeah, going back to your point as well, I don't think he's batted above 4 in his first class career. And he's yet to score a 4-day 100, I believe, or maybe even 100 in first class cricket, full stop.
It's not scored 100 in first class. The average is 25.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I normally sway to we should pick on form and weight of runs and experience. Mm-hmm. But I think he might be one of these players where they have just seen something. He's a great fielder as well. He can obviously bowl slow left arm. But yeah, I think he is a real talent, and I think maybe there are 1 or 2 players that could have been in the squad before him. But I think long term, I think he will prove to be all format player. And yeah, really excited to see what he does against the Kiwis.
Yeah, quite a good time to raise this. Is he's had really high praise. So Glenn Maxwell's praised him a lot. Marcus Trescothick's said in that 3 format mould he's the second coming of Harry Brook or something along those lines. So that's the sort of names who are praising him. That's the sort of names who he's getting compared to. And the quotes come out from Joe Root earlier today saying, if you look at the way he sets up, I think it suits that batting at 3. Especially here with the little bit of extra bounce and carry. He plays very well square of the wicket, and if he gets it on a wicket like that, he could be very destructive, talking about the New Zealand decks. He's got all the shots, looking at some clips of those 2 innings I mentioned earlier. He's got the on drive, off drives, covers, cuts, pulls, flicks, and there's a great clip of him pummeling Adam Zampa over cow corner, deep into the Sophia Gardens night, or the Cardiff night, shall I say. Me and Luke have waffled for long enough. Ray, what are your thoughts on the selection?
So yeah, Jack Abathal is one of the exciting talents from England. But as Luke said perfectly there, what quite like 1 or 2 players was wanting their England cap before Jack Abathal. But it's with England management. They want to go with Jack Abathal in the batting order. I hope as an Indian fan, I want England to come over New Zealand, which will be a good sign for India to make into the Lords. So I want England to win.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fair enough. But you seem have a bit more doubt than me and Luke regarding Bethel's selection. Who would you have batting 3 instead? Would you keep Pope there and because it seems harsh with him with the gloves, or maybe have Stokes there?
Just Ollie Pope is not a regular keeper for England, so he's not keeping for Surrey as well. So I'll put Ollie Pope at number 3 and select a regular keeper in place of Jamie Smith. But it's a brave move by Stokes and McCallum to select Jack Abathal and give him a go. I hope he'll match the expectation and come good.
Have they called up a replacement? I heard the name Ollie Robinson, the other one. Is he going to get over there at some point?
Yeah, he's getting flown out. He'll be in the mix for the second test. I think they've judged it's too late, even if he arrived today for him to be playing, which is fair enough.
It's quite a long way, isn't it?
Believe me, I've been. Took a while to get home.
Yeah.
It's shattering journey. Those long haul flights. Sure. So I think it's probably wise to let him acclimatise, have a bit of a net, try and get used to the deck somewhat. Someone who's presumably never toured in New Zealand before. Luke, I know I'm about to mention another sort of new man. He's played 1 series so far. I know you're a big fan. Bryden Cast continues to impress. He had a good tour match in Queenstown the other day. I really enjoyed him in Pakistan. He was a shining light throughout that series, even if it was ultimately a bit disappointing. How do you think he'll fare on probably more friendly decks for his bowling style?
Yeah. As you say, really, really excited to see how he does on the decks out in New Zealand. We've seen he bowls at high pace. We also got the ball to reverse swing. I think that's going to be less of a factor out in New Zealand. So it'll be interesting to see how much he can get out of the pitch, maybe some seam movement. But yeah, I think he's another great pick. And I think as well, I've seen him bat a lot in the county championship. He's a really, really good all-rounder. I don't think we've seen it in England colours yet. But I think if he can add those lower order runs to his bowling, yeah, he's going to be a really, really valuable player for England for a long time.
Yeah. I think with the extra little bit of bounce we've seen, I think he's got that profile. Obviously, you get similar decks to Australia, and I think similarly to Australia, they'll be more dangerous at the start of matches and then flatten out. I remember I was in Wellington for the second game back in 2023. It was a really, green top at the start of the game. A lot of seam. I remember Zach Crawley, I think, nicked off during that, during his notorious era of snicking off pretty much daily. But it did flatten a lot. So I think it'd be useful to have Cast because he could probably exploit both conditions. He's proven he can do it on a flat deck in Pakistan. And he can hopefully make the most of when it is seaming around, swinging around a little bit as well. Ray?
Yeah, so
thoughts on Cast,
you told
thoughts
that.
on the rest of the attack?
Yeah, so thoughts on Cast is, he's going to rub shoulders with Pat Cummins in the Indian summer in IPL. So, that's also going to be a big kind of a thing for Bryden Cost to learn. And he's another exciting talent. And with you said that New Zealand conditions are pretty similar to Australia, so it's going to be a preparation for the next Ashes for the England. So I have doubt that is Jofra Archer still not fit to bowl the red ball, or is he not in the scheme of things for England Test cricket? What's the reason for his exclusion in the team?
Go on, Luke. Do you want to go first? I've probably got a similar answer.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, he will play in the Ashes down under. But I think, he's not long come back from injury. So I think they've just got to really carefully manage his workload. You'd hope, I think probably a tour to New Zealand, going all the way out there with his injury issues. And he's obviously playing a lot of white ball cricket, going to be in the IPL. I imagine they've got more of a plan. Maybe he might play at the start of the England summer, maybe even play a few county games, manage his workload, and then with the hope of building that up, looking forward to the Ashes. But yeah, I guess it just depends how his body really holds up.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's purely injury-based concern. I think, we've seen the way this England side operates, whether you like it or not. And I think overall I don't like it. They don't actually see these games as the same level. They don't see these games as glorified warm-ups, it feels like, for India and Australia series. And for that reason, they're not going to risk Archer when they know they don't need to sort of assess him and his ability and his readiness for Test cricket. We've seen that if he's on, he will be England's best bowler. He is England's best seam bowler, especially in Australian conditions. He'll be England's best option. They don't need to look at that. He probably doesn't need that experience. He knows everyone in the setup from being around the setup for so long. So they don't need to worry about that kind of, the vibes element of his selection so much. And so they just, the way McCullum and Stokes look at it, they don't see it as a justifiable risk when he is so, it does seemingly is so fragile and vulnerable to injuries, which is fair enough, because obviously if he then got injured in Wellington second test, for example, I'd be just as fuming as everyone else. But I suppose in an ideal world he'd play and we'd be guaranteed that he wouldn't get injured, but that's completely a made up scenario which can't exist. So it doesn't really matter. Rest of the team's pretty consistent, isn't it? Ben Dockett's obviously been having a good year. Crawley could, probably do a little bit of form, but he's definitely earned the right to play for a lot longer. I also noticed one thing about the Ollie Pope selection as the keeper. I think they've seen this as an opportunity to try out Bethel at 3 without dropping Pope. because he's under a bit of pressure. Maybe letting Pope come in at 6 might make it a little bit easier for him. Come in with the top bowl's a bit more tired, ball a bit more worn down. Do you think there's anything in this, or am I speculating a bit too much, Luke?
No, I think you're definitely right. And if I was Ollie Pope, I'd be a little bit worried, because if Bethel comes in at 3 and does really well, he's the sort of next cab off the rank. And then, as you say, Ollie Pope's form has not been good. So he's probably the only batter in that top 5 or 6 whose place is actually under any threat. So yeah, if Bethel has a good tour and Pope doesn't score any runs at number 6, that might be quite a good time for Baz and Stokes to sort of say, yeah, you've had your go, maybe go back to county cricket, score some more runs. But it's like we talked about before, it's Pope, I don't know if it's a mental thing, he just looks so scratchy at the start of his innings, but the talent is clearly there, and when he does get in, we've seen him big and back so well. Was it in Pakistan he got that 200?
Pope.
Yeah. India. Exactly.
Hyderabad.
Yeah, so I mean, how many England batters have done that? So yeah, he has got some sort of credits in the tank, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Bethel goes.
Yeah. One last thing. It never gets mentioned, and I'm going to say it, and this is sacrilege, perhaps. But Ben Stokes, any danger of scoring some runs at some point? 2024, I've just looked it up now, he averages 24 in 10 games, 19 innings, so it's not like it's an unfair sample size.
Yeah, again,
since that 150 at Lords, obviously, this is what keeps him in, is he's got that in the locker, which is, practically no batter in Test history has that in the locker. Doing what he did there, doing what he did in 2019. Any danger, Ben? Come on, mate. Get some runs.
Yeah, especially if he's not bowling.
Yeah.
Then I know he does bring a lot with the captaincy, and I think the whole philosophy without Stokes kind of falls through. So he's the one who's essentially bought into this Bazball and McCullum's theory on how to play cricket.
Yeah.
Without him, the team loses a bit of that momentum, and he's the one who's sort of brave enough to implement how they're going to play. And he's very good with the media as well. He sort of protects his players, and he takes the ownership. And I think he'll know better than anyone. He probably needs to get some runs to justify his place in the team. But I think he's still such a good player that runs will be around the corner. And yeah, I think it's not long he sort of came back from injury as well, isn't it? So I think, just the more cricket he plays, the sort of the better.
I'm not calling for his dropping, by the way. I'm just saying he'll know it better than I do. But come on, mate.
Yeah.
Pope's averaged 32 compared to his 24 in 2024. So, like, we talk about Pope, he's actually scored 2 big hundreds this year. 150 at the Oval, and then Hyderabad at the very start of the year. And, you don't get that from Stokesy. You do get brilliant leadership a lot of the time. He came under a bit of flack for his captaincy in Pakistan, but overall he's still very good in that. Obviously, very good in that department. So, Ben, I'm sure you're listening. Pull your finger up, mate. Come on, because I'm sat here in my bedroom, in my living room, preparing to get myself a job in a pizza place. That's what I think. So pathetic. No, I'm joking. He's class, and I'll love him forever. Ray.
So I want to say one thing according to the Ollie Pope.
Yes, please go for it. What do you think with Ollie Pope?
If Ollie Pope, if Ollie Pope plays for India and score 200 in Australia and England, he will get a chance for another 2 or 3 years without dropping from a team.
Would he?
Sadly, he plays for England.
Really?
So 200 in India, as Luke said, 200 in India, how many England batters have get that? Especially in a second innings of a test match. He has that skill. Sadly, he plays for England, and we know what the team selection of England. They
Well,
know they dropped. They
remind.
forced Jimmy Anderson to retire.
Mm.
Then who is Ollie Pope for them?
Who's the Indian batter who scored a 300 and then was dropped?
Arun Nair.
And what's happened to
Yeah,
him?
after after a 300, he get a chance for another year,
Okay.
another one more year. But sadly, he couldn't perform like even a 50 in that period. So he was out of the scheme of things. But still, no. Yeah,
No,
but still he got 1 year.
your point is valid. I mean, I think we're in England. We're very quick to criticise.
Extremely reactive. We are extremely reactive.
I think batting at number 3. I think that is obviously like the most important position, arguably, to bat in your Test side, and traditionally is your best batter. Is Ollie Pope our best batter?
Well, that's fine. It's fine that he's not. Like, Root's our best, just like Virat's India's best, and he comes in at 4. And Steve Smith has been Australia's best for a number of years, coming in at 4. But you still want a classy player. Pope is a classy player. You just wish he looked. It's almost just a aesthetic thing where he looks a little bit rattled at the start of every innings. I want to be wrong. I hope he scores. I hope he averages 50 in this series, and we all shut up. And you know what? Knowing these England players, maybe they probably will. They do seem very resilient.
But sorry to interrupt. Another thing for the batter who bat at number 6 is it's really tough for a batter batting at number 6 and to score a big hundreds because you're already batting down the order. So I'm hoping, as you said, Ollie Pope will average 50, use his chance and, finish the innings as an out batsman, score some 50 or 60 runs and come back good.
I think it suits him. I almost prefer him seeing his name at 6 and at 3. Do you see some logic in that?
But it's tough for a batsman batting at 6 to score some big hundreds like he used to do in India. So it's up to him. Yeah.
Yeah. So where were we? Yeah, Joe Root. He is obviously one of the players of a generation. He's one of the greats of England cricket, certainly in the 21st century, or pretty much certainly in history. He scored the most runs out of any England player. I thought I'd include this because I'm rattled, and I think Luke's probably a bit rattled as well. Darren Lehman was on commentary, I think, for ABC as Australia fell to a 295-run defeat to India at Perth, where they, in theory, are meant to be infallible and this godlike entity. And he said he was talking about comparing Root to Kohli, Kane Williamson, and Steve Smith. And he said, nope, he's a rung below those 3 batters for that reason. They've made runs all over the world in difficult conditions against different oppositions, and that's the only thing stopping Joe Root. I think he's a great player, but is he an all-time great? I don't have him in that realm. I think you've got to make hundreds all around the world because Root hasn't done that, has he? Smith does, Williamson has, Kohli has, Rohit Sharma has. I mean, they're world-class players. Before you comment, Luke, he's also written on X a bit later on saying, just to be clear, as there are a lot of people who think that I think Joe Root is not a great. He is going to be a great. I know that, and a wonderful ambassador for our game. But he will probably do this next Ashes to get 100 in Australia, and then there's no dispute. And to round off the story, Joe Root responded in a press conference after being asked about it, saying that I'll do my job and he can do his job. He's completely entitled to say what he wants. That's his right. So typically measured and classy from Root. Luke, just how incorrect is Darren?
Yeah, I think it's just the Aussies are trying to stir something up, really. Yeah, I think it's classic behaviour, really, and I think especially in the last couple of years, Root. Before that, I think the argument would have stood. Root was going through that phase where he wasn't really converting 50s into 100s. But in the last 2 years, I think he's been a class above anyone: Coley, Smith, Williamson. So I think, he's earned his right to be spoken alongside those guys and one of the game's greats. I get the point about not scoring 100 in Australia, but I don't think his record is that bad there. I think it's.
I've done some research on that, by the way, but continue.
Okay, maybe it's not great, but I think he is in his prime now, whereas those players have maybe been through their prime. And so, Root out in Australia, I think he'll have a big series. I think actually he's suited to batting out on those tracks, so it's surprising. Plays the short ball well. He's really good through the offside, back foot punches. But I mean, the Aussies, they have had a really good attack as well. And I think sometimes you have to credit the Aussie bowlers. I think as well, they'll be strong again. But I think, Root is in sort of such a rich vein of form. The only thing is the added pressure, because he'll go into that series knowing it's the only place he's still got to prove himself. So maybe the first 2 tests will be really important. If he's able to get off to a good start, I can see him dominating it. I think it was Cook the last time we went out there. I think he scored something like nearly 900 runs. Obviously unbelievable. If Root does something even close to that, then
it's secured greatness.
No dispute.
Ray, do you agree with Darren? Do you agree with me and Luke?
I don't agree with Darren. So I see this as a deviation, like creating a controversy to hide their defeat. I see it that way. So all the English fans are absolutely happy and elated about Australia's crushing defeat. So I see Darren Lehman's comment as creating controversy and make that controversy bigger than their defeat. I see it that way. Absolutely, Root is one of the best batsmen England ever produced, and he's one of a modern day legend.
Yeah, I enjoyed that shrug of the shoulders. So I've done some. So first of all, some stats on his Root's abilities in Australia. His top score is 89, and he averages 35. Right. So it's like, does he lose greatness status because in that game at the Gabba when he got 89 in 2021, if he'd got 11 more runs and got 100, everything changes because of those 11 more runs. Another innings, he retired on 58 in Sydney in 2018. So who knows? He might have gone on if he hadn't had to retire hurt. And so again, if he scores 42 more runs in that scenario, is that the difference between greatness or not? And he scored 87 as well in a game, I think it was in 2013, and a few more 50 plus scores which he didn't quite convert. So it's just like, and if you can dig around Australian batters in different countries and then say, well, they didn't do that quite so well in that country, therefore they're not a great. Ricky Ponting, I think he is a great, and he is a great. He averaged 26 in India. Alan Border averaged 38 in South Africa, and had a high score of 45. Do we think AB is a great? I do. Steve Waugh averaged 16 in Sri Lanka and 35 in New Zealand. Mark Waugh averaged 12 in Sri Lanka and 35 in New Zealand. Justin Langer averaged 29 in India, and David Warner averaged 26 in England. So it's just bollocks. And I am rattled. So well done, Darren. You have rattled me.
That's a very big nibble there, Will.
I'm full rage mode. Put this on Instagram. Let's finally get some traction on the social media, with lots of Australians telling me how much of a sad Brit I am. But there we go. I rest my case, and I'll try not to cry anymore.
Very good, Will. I think you've proved your point. But I think, it is interesting as well. So I think in cricket and cricket fans, we're obviously obsessed with statistics and hundreds. But if you think about it logically, if Root goes and scores 90 in every innings, down under, but doesn't get 100, or gets 100, like what's better? Like, surely that he gets 90 in every innings. But I feel like internet fans or people who don't really watch that much of the game might just look at hundreds or 50s. And it's also context dependent as well. Like a gritty 30 to win a test match, low scoring test match, arguably could be worth more than 100 on a flat road.
Yeah.
That is in a draw. So I think sometimes you do need to look beyond those statistics. But I think the point still stands. He's not dominated an Australian series yet down under. So I think that is the final hurdle. Yeah.
I think he's already one of the greats. I don't think he needs to. That's my point.
He doesn't need
to do that in Australia. Obviously, I would desperately want him to, but I don't think he needs to, even though that's the general narrative is that he does.
So, I want to thank Darren Lehman for making Will unleashing his England fan and Joe Root fan from himself. Really unleashed it.
Yeah, I think I'm quite managed to be quite sort of level-headed most of the time, but this has annoyed me. I think that there's another moment actually. So when I was watching the day one of the India Australia test, and Kohli dropped Labuschagne, and he kind of had it almost completely in control and then dropped it. And then David Warner was going, I reckon that should count as being caught, just like Mitchell Starks should have been given caught. And it's just like, well, it just obviously was a drop, and that's fine. So yeah, the Aussies they've won this round in terms of chat, but they're wrong, so maybe they haven't. New Zealand, the opposition, couldn't be in a better mood following their 3-0 defeat over India. You've probably watched them the most recently, Ray. What threats do they pose to England?
The main thing is Kane Williamson is back into the squad. He'll perfectly walk into the 11. So they have to drop either Will Young or one of the batsmen to make way for Kane Williamson. And the bowling perspective, the spinners are so good in India, but it's not the case in New Zealand. So Tim Southee, Matt Henry, and Willow Root, these guys need to step up and dismantle the England batting order, which is just quite tough a job, I guess. But England have been struggling in New Zealand. Haven't won a test series in New Zealand for a long time, I guess. So it's going to be an even battle. But as an Indian fan, I want England to win, which will make a way easier for India to the Lords.
Yeah, I really like Devon Conway at the top of the order. He always seems to runs against us, and Daryl Mitchell as well. So yeah, I think they're a really, really strong team, and we shouldn't underestimate them. We obviously saw what they did out in India. Tim Southee's last test series as well before he retires. So I think, it'll be a good last chance to see him bowl. What a player he's been for them over the years. Other than that, I don't know. So Matt Henry is a good bowler as well.
Yeah.
I know who was the big guy that played for a while. Is he sort of out of the fold?
Jamieson.
Yeah, Kyle
Jamieson's completely out of the. I just stress fracture Merchant.
Okay, because
Pretty gutting. He's a brilliant player, brilliant bowler, but I just don't think he can
really
keep his fitness up.
high. And I guess Trent Bolt's been out of the Test setup for a while now, hasn't he, as well? So
Yeah.
I guess it will be up to Matt Henry is going to be the one to sort of take over from Southey and sort of carry that New Zealand bowling attack.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hopefully the England batters can get on top of them early, score big, and then give the bowlers something to bowl at, really.
Yeah. So it looks like Will Young's going to be dropped for Williamson. Is that right?
But he was the player of the series.
Yeah. This is the thing. He was the player of the series. I read a New Zealand Herald article, which seemed to imply that was what was happening. But then I read an article about the Indian predicted 11 last week, which was completely wrong. So I don't want to read too much into it. Like I probably took that word for gospel too much. Took that word as gospel too much. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one because you can't. Ratchet and Revenge was pretty undroppable as well, and Devon Conway definitely. Tom Latham, but then you've got to try and get Kane Williams back in. So I suppose it's a good headache for the Kiwi selectors to have. So it'll be interesting to see who they go for. Few little mundane details about the test. So it starts tomorrow, 10 p.m. UK time at the Hagley Oval in Christchurch, and then they go up to Wellington before the final test in Hamilton. I'm glad it's a 3-test series. I was out there last time. We toured for 2 tests at Mount Maunganui and then Wellington. Feel like it's quite a good opportunity just to talk a little bit about how good a place New Zealand is to watch cricket. I'm very jealous of the Barmy Army who are going to be out there this time around. I'm glad they're going to get a 3rd test. It felt like a long way to go just for 2 matches. But just stunning landscape. The Basin Oval is something else in Wellington. Don't really know why. It's just got that old time feel about it, quite almost a club cricket feel about it, which the romantic in me really enjoys as a as a big fan of Test cricket and everything else that goes with it. I think I remember just sitting on those grass banks all day, every day, pint in hand. It was superb. And at the basin, there was one day where we were sat, and then a Kiwi fella was just going around. So he was sat, and everyone around him, he was asking, you put in £1 into the pot, and you had to say when the next wicket would fall. And I think it was someone's wife or girlfriend who she said she'd never watched cricket before, had no idea what was going on, so just picked a random number relatively close to the total at the time, and of course a wicket fell bang on. I think it was 81 or whatever it was, and that sticks out in the memory. It's a great place to go. So I'm sure the England boys and the England fans are enjoying it out there. Anything else to add on that series as a whole before I move on to the last segment today?
So I want to wish Team Southey from us from the beginning stems. He's one of the flag bearers of New Zealand cricket around the world. So from behind the stems, I wish go well Tim. He's go well from in the last Test series.
Yeah. One of a bit of a legend, Southey.
Yeah.
Last thing.
Not too well.
Yeah, last thing. Series predictions, quick fire. Luke. Tough to call, isn't it?
2-1 England.
Ray.
Tough to predict. I'll go with 1 each.
I was going to say 1-1. I'll mix it up. I'll say 2-1 New Zealand. I'd rather not say that. No, 2-1 England. 2-1 England. I don't want to say. I've just gone through every possible score, haven't I? Final selection, 2-1 England. Moving on, last thing today, we've had a bit of a long episode in the end. The IPL draft happened in Jeddah over the weekend. The main standout story I thought was the 13-year-old. They have Suryavanshi. Ray, correct me if I said that wrong.
Vaibhav Suryavanshi.
Sure, I said that right, didn't I?
Definitely.
Suryavanshi has been drafted for the Rajasthan Royals. He's 13 years old. Been bought for 11 million rupees, which is about 100 grand sterling. And the other story from an English perspective is that James Anderson has gone undrafted, as I expected, really. Ray, over to you. Can you do a quick summary of the IPL draft and what it all means before we finish today?
Opportunity. That's what I think of IPL draft. 13-year-old getting an opportunity to coach by Rahul Dravid, the former coach of India, and rubbing shoulders with Jofra Archer, Sanju Samson. Oh God, what opportunity for a 13-year-old kid. I'm just literally, happy for the Indian talents. And with the money spent in the IPL, oh God, Rishabh Pant went for 20 crore Indian money, which is literally more than, millions of pounds. So for just 1 month. And with the England perspective, there's so many England talents got a IPL bid, like Braden Cos is going to play under Pat Cummins. Moeen Ali got a bit as well. He's going to play for Kolkata. And Phil Salt, Jacob Bethel, Liam Livingston is going to play alongside Virat Kohli for Royal Challengers Bangalore. So it's a great opportunity for a youngster like Jacob Bethel. He's going to rub shoulders with Virat. And for my team, Mumbai Indians, Will Jacks and Reece Topley is going to play alongside Jasprit Bumrah, Hardik Pandya, and Rohit Sharma. So that's an opportunity for Will Jacks to open alongside Rohit Sharma. So it's quite an opportunity for youngsters and talents across the world to showcase their talent in one of the biggest franchisee leagues.
Just to be clear, as someone who doesn't follow, and for other English listeners who maybe don't follow as closely, when someone's drafted and there's a figure put next to their name, that's how much they're getting paid by the team, right? Is that how it works?
For example, no. Yeah, so Jacob Bethel went for millions of pounds. I'm not sure about the exact amount, but he went for millions of pounds for the Royal Challengers Bangalore. But he needs to pay certain amount of money to the cricket board, as the cricket board is allowing the player to take part. So it's like I think 20 or 30% of winning bid money to the cricket board, and all the remaining money will go into his purse. So it's both of a win-win for both the player and the cricket board and the league.
The cricket board being the BCCI.
No, ECB. So England Cricket Board is allowing their contracted players
to
the IPL. So they are also getting benefited.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
and
hopefully they can invest that into the.
Luke mentioned about Jofra Archer playing in county. I feel which is not going to happen because England Cricket Board, announced that all the England players will be available fully for the IPL, and now Jofra Archer selected by Rajasthan, so he's not going to play the start of the summer in England.
So what dates are when does
it start? So the IPL is going to start on March 18 and will go for 1.5 months. So the start of the summer, Jofra Archer will be unavailable for Sussex.
That's a bit of a shame.
No.
That is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
There was one other talking point that I wanted to raise as well. So Adil Rashid went unsold, which I find quite surprising. Because for me, he's one of definitely leg spinners in white ball cricket. So I'm not sure. I don't know if it's his fielding or his age that maybe puts people off. I'm not quite sure.
No, yeah. The other thing is, every team needs to select only 8 overseas players in their team.
Yeah.
So when you have only limited number of, positions, so it's really hard to fit in overseas spinners. because we do have a lot of Indian spinners in the name of, we have Indian Yuhi Chahal, Varun Chakravarti, Ravi Krishna a lot. So it's really hard for the teams to pick overseas spinners. As we spoke, James Anderson doesn't attracted a bit, didn't attract a bit. So the Johnny B didn't get a bit. Shardul Thakur, Sarfraz Khan. There are quite a few talents. Kane Williamson didn't get a bit. So there are so many. David Warner. There are quite a few big names as well.
Yeah, it's a shame. I would have loved to see Anderson bowling in the IPL.
Yeah, I would really wish.
I thought a team should just do it for the publicity and even the shirt sales, right?
Yeah.
But
I wish, there are some other leagues as well. So he will, I feel he'll need to play the South African League or the West Indies League to just get practice for the franchisee tournaments. If he proves that. Yeah. And the other thing, so we talked about the Global Super League as well, right? Global Super League is going to happen. Already started, I guess. Where Hampshire is already taking part in the Global Super League in Caribbean. So it's also started.
Yeah. Luke, when you said shirt sales, that reminds me of like FIFA 18 career mode, when you make a new signing and the board's happy because you managed to raise 10 million in shirt sales because Paul Pogba's been popular.
To be honest, there's so much money in the IPL, it probably doesn't even.
I don't think they'll be asked about Anderson selling 1,000
It gives opportunity for him to. It gives opportunity for him to pick heaps of wickets in the second division for Lancashire.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very.
Yeah, he'll be tearing it up for like.
Hey, this 13-year-old, have you seen him play?
No, I haven't seen him play. He's just 13 years old, but somehow he attracted a team to bid for him. Oh, and that too in the millions of pounds. Oh God!
Yeah. Well, he's gonna get.
I'm just thinking of him.
That's a lot of pocket money.
Yeah. Surely just think that's got to go to his parents, not him.
Absolutely.
Get some good Christmas presents with that if they go to his parents.
Chocolates.
Yeah. No, he needs to keep his diet good for the Royals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about Project Mbappe, this 13-year-old is.
So yeah, we're gonna have to get. We can't just call him that 13-year-old. How do we say his name? Rayan. We need to be, respectful.
Yeah, Vaibhav Suryavanshi.
Suryavanshi.
Yeah, that's
Suryavanshi. Right. Well, I'll be watching for Suryavanshi. Hopefully, he plays at some point.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll play? Do you think he'll get on the pitch at some point?
It's really tough because the Rajasthan Royals batting lineup is already fixed. They retained 5 players, 5 batters. So it's really tough for him to make into the 11. But it will be opportunity for him to share a dressing room with the legends like Sanju Samson, Jafra Archer.
Crazy.
Oh God.
Crazy. Imagine how scared you were. How scared I was of the first team when I was playing club cricket at age 13. He's got to walk into a dressing room with the best players in the world.
Crazy.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
Like, surely it's not safe for him to face, I don't know, Mitchell Stark or something like that,
Bumrah. Is Bumrah playing for the Royals?
No.
But I think I did read that he scored 100 for the under-19s against Australia.
Oh my God!
I think that's why he's so part of the reason he's so hated.
Yeah. This is the thing, like when I look at like footballers now, and I see like Saka's younger than me, or like John Duran or whatever. Like it's just Bukayo Saka's, I think, 2 years younger than me, and whatever else. And now I might watch the IPL and there's a 13-year-old playing.
Mate, don't try it when you're approaching 30 and you'd be past your peak. That's even worse, mate. Yeah, it's difficult. The dream is over.
The dream was over a long time ago for me and Ray, even for me even. Oh dear. For everyone, I suppose. Yeah. The pod has descended into waffle even more than our usual standards, I think. We've spoken for over an hour in this second half. So I think with that, it's time to bring the pod to an abrupt end. Thank you so much for listening to Behind the Stumps.
I think it's the longest episode we have ever recorded, I guess.
Yeah, it could well be. I've got a lot of editing. I actually don't have much editing to do. We've been pretty smooth throughout, haven't we? Yeah. Cheers, boys. Great episode. Cheers, Luke. Thanks for coming on for the second half.
Cheers, lads. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. And Ray, thanks so much as always.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, Ray. This has been Behind the Stumps. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to comment. The comment section is still bereft. But one day, someone other than Josh Ashbery will leave a comment. So please do. The views have actually been pretty consistent, over 200 per episode at the moment, which we're very happy with. So thank you so much to those people who are listening, even if it is just for the first 3 minutes or whatever it is. Please listen a bit longer. Although, ironically, you won't be listening. I'm going to stop waffling. This has been the Behind the Stumps podcast. Thanks so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.